What's going on, everybody? Jeff C here, back with another book review, and this time it is a banger. Something that I mentioned maybe one or two videos ago. I was at a bookstore looking for something for my wife, and just kind of started looking at the bookshelves as you do, and I was in the classic literature section. I saw this book, and I never even heard of it. I didn't know anything about it, but I liked the cover and I read the blurb on the back and I really thought it was interesting, so I wanted to check it out. So boom, that book is I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by Joanne Greenberg. I'm gonna read this to the back here real quick. First of all, look at that cover. Penguin Classics. They never fail to deliver. That's really cool. I like that. Let me read the back of this for you just in case you've never heard it. After making an attempt on her own life, 16-year-old Deborah Blau is diagnosed with schizophrenia. With the reluctant and fearful consent of her parents, she enters a psychiatric hospital many hours from her home in suburban Chicago. Here, she will spend the next 3 years trying, with the help of a gifted psychiatrist, to find a path back to her normal life and to emerge from the imaginary kingdom of Ur in which she has sought refuge. A semi-autobiographical novel originally published under the pen name Hannah Green, just a year after The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I Never Promised You a Rose Garden remains, more than half a century later, a timeless and ultimately hopeful book, ripe for rediscovery by a new generation eager to erase the stigma of mental illness. This is an absolute awesome read for me. 4 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend you check it out. This is it's a psychological, it's not a comfortable read. There's no real like violence to speak of. Sometimes when you imagine like life inside an asylum, there's like horrible things that, of course, we all know about the stories of things that have gone on inside there, but there's nothing too wild in here. There is one kind of procedure that they use as an intervention for the patients there, but honestly, even at some point, she actually, as she begins to recover, she even asks for that procedure. So it's not super wild. It's not like grotesquely violent or anything. So yes, this book is about mental illness, and it is from the patient's point of view. This is not like an outside observer looking in type story. That was really one of the things I admired most about this, is the way that Greenberg really gave us the point of views of not just the patient, but everybody involved in her care, from her parents, her sister, the psychiatrist with whom she's dealing with, and even several of the other patients at the facility that she developed relationships with. It's groundbreaking. It did show like schizophrenia portrayed, not really a like modern clinical sense, but like a deeply human one, again, from the eyes of the individuals who were involved. And so, the plot of this story, I don't really think is like a what happens type vibe. This is really like how reality is experienced by these people. There's a internal kind of fantasy world that Deborah Blau, who's the main character, that she experiences, and so this shows you how that world can be both like a refuge and also a trap. I would say that this is really more of a psychological exploration versus like a traditional narrative. It's not really like, there's not a lot of textbook jargon going on in here. It's really easy to read, and I think you'll really like it. So again, you have Deborah, who's the main character. Both of her parents, Jacob and Esther, they have individual personalities, and just it gets into their head about how they're trying to deal with this situation with their daughter. And then she has a younger sister, Susie, who also has to kind of navigate this path as she grows up. This is over the course of several years, and their formative years also in Susie's world. So and you see different pictures of that as the years go by. And so I thought that was really interesting. For me, certainly the highlight of this book was the relationship between Deb and her psychiatrist, Dr. Freed. And it was so cool the way that we're shown how just being understood can be the therapy. Like, Deb had given instances where she had different doctors in the past who didn't really work towards her best interest, didn't quite believe everything that she told them. And then once Dr. Freed was able to kind of just let her know in her own way that she was going to sit with her and she trusted that she was being told the right information, it almost instantaneously changed Deb. And hey, I get it. Sometimes we just need to be understood, right? Who is this book for? I think this is anyone who's interested in psychology, psychiatry, the inner experience. If you want a really nice book on mental health that's not very technical, it's not too teaching driven per se, it just shows you one experience. And again, this is semi-autobiographical from Joanne Greenberg's point of view. And she talks about that in this edition. At the end, she kind of talks about her experience and why she wrote the way she wrote it, and also why she used the name Hannah Green, which, if you kind of notice, Joanne Greenberg, Joanne, Hannah, Greenberg, Green. That's kind of how she chose it, but why she stopped using that name is also pretty interesting. So check it out if you want that information. Who is this book not for? This is not for you if you want fast pacing. I really had to sit with this book at times. If you want an uplifting story, this is not that. It doesn't there's not a big bow put on the end of it and everything was just hunky-dory at the end. There was still work to do, and I think there's always work to do, right? One thing I kept thinking of in my mind is that movie A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe, and how he has those three characters that are kind of haunting him towards throughout the movie. And one of the things that he has to realize in healing is that those characters will always be there. They will never go away. And it's work that he has to do to keep them at bay. And so it's kind of something similar in I Never Promised You a Rose Garden for our character, our protagonist, Deborah. And so what it really is how much of healing is treatment in the mental illness space versus how much of it is just being seen. That's what this brings to light. And I think, as a society, we're obviously still kind of reeling in that question in 2026 now. And so finally, I did give this 4.5 stars on Fable, obviously 5 stars on Goodreads. I recommend it highly to you. And I did mention when I read the back, its connection to The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and I actually have picked that up. So, we'll see. At some point I'll be reading that. Again, I'm one of those readers, man, that sometimes I don't know what I'm going to read until I look at the bookshelf and grab something off of it. I try to plan stuff out, but it doesn't always work that way, right? So anyway, I thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know down in the comments, have you read I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by Joanna Greenberg? What'd you think of it? And please like, subscribe. Follow me on Goodreads, Fable, Instagram. I'm there, Jeff C. Based Book on all of those books. All of those, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.